Well, a hearty shalom to you. Dr. Jeffrey Seif here. Pleased to welcome you to the Messianic Jewish Family Bible Society. You can peruse the site, the different videos, and learn a little bit about what the society does. It was my task within this larger world to focus on bringing to term the Tree of Life version of the Bible. And I was privileged to work with a number of others, men and women more competent than myself, who labored to produce a vetted translation of the text that's the work product of the entire Messianic Jewish movement global, in Israel and out of Israel. And it's such a thrill. I'm working my way through it. In brief, there's so much to get into, even to go through these Torah portions. Oh goodness, there's so much. And today, this week's reading, there's so much drama and trauma. There's agony and there's ecstasy. I don't know what it's like with you when you deal with your family circumstances. But the Lord has brought his people out of Egypt, and they're making the accoutrements of the worship space for the tabernacle. Moses is up there on the mountain. They're coming down. He's coming down and realizing that not only are they making stuff for the tabernacle, they've kind of made a golden calf. What a mess. What a zoo. What agony. What trauma. Moses comes down, breaks the tablets, and God is not a happy camper. He's like a jealous guy who's discovered his girlfriend's been cheating on him. That really is what's happened. It's such a mess. And then Moses, in this week's reading, he gets there and intercedes for him. Don't kill him. Come on, you got to be patient. These are your people. There's just so much here. And this stuff happened thousands of years ago, but this same experience repeats generation to generation. People can be so very faithless, and you see that in the 32nd chapter and the 33rd chapter. We go on, but I really want to land my feet on the 34th chapter because there's a revelation of God amidst all of this that I think is profound. And it's a corrective, by the way, for those that are game to see that the God in the Old Testament is this angry camper just throwing thunderbolts at people and ready to send them all into hell. I mean, that's the perspective that exists out there. But I don't really believe that one can come to that conclusion just from reading the literature. Now, what I just told you, the narrative I gave, is very congruent with what we're seeing in the literature. But what's revealed in chapter 34, in the beginning of the chapter, the game here is, let's do this again. Okay, the first tablets got ground down, didn't work out. Okay, let's go for number 2. And there Moses is again participating in the manufacture of these commandments, which are going to be brought to the people. We're told that Moses ascends the heights, and once again in verse 5, Adonai descended in the cloud and stood with him there as he called on the name of the Lord. Moses is worshiping, he has a relationship, and God meets him there. Then in verse 6, you enter into God's presence and you get a revelation, you get a word. Then Adonai passed before him and proclaimed. Now, what I want to underscore is this is all against the backdrop of Israel playing the fool, being unworthy of whatever graces God is going to administrate simply because they've been so foolish and faithless. But Moses intercedes on their behalf, and listen to the revelation that's proclaimed. Adonai, Adonai, the compassionate and gracious God, slow to anger and abounding in loving kindness and truth, showing mercy to 1,000 generations, forgiving iniquity and transgression and sin. That's a really interesting revelation. This isn't sinners in the hand of an angry God. Now, he's not a happy camper, and there is retribution. He's going to want to say as much, that he's willing to forgive those that turn, those that are recalcitrant, that aren't game to repent of their sins. Well, then we'll deal with that. I mean, he's very explicit about it, that the sins will be visited should the people opt to remain in them. But the point here in the Older Testament, even against the backdrop of wild unfaithfulness, should individuals turn away from their sin, God is game to meet them and be kindly disposed toward them. It's against that backdrop that I wonder how it is really that individuals have a jaded perspective that there's no mercy in the Torah, just rigid structures and an angry God that says, do this, do that. He says, screw up once, you're out of here. That's just not what I gather from a reading of the text. Well, the Lord here represents himself what Judaism is game to describe as various attributes of God: compassionate, gracious, slow to anger, abundant in loving kindness and truth, showing mercy. These are his attributes. In verse 8, Moses quickly bowed his head to the earth and worshipped. In response to this, now I only read, the attributes of God's grace. Now, he does go on to underscore that there is judgment, as I'd said a moment ago, for those that are recalcitrant, for those that refuse over time and through circumstance to bend his way. Subsequent to that revelation, Moses then he acknowledges, he bows, he worships, and he said, if now I have found favor in your eyes, my Lord, let my Lord please go within our midst, even though this is a stiff-necked people. And stiff-necked means refusing to bow. At my age, I have issues with discs, and it gets a little sore, and I take an anti-inflammatory. It's not a major medicine. Should the good Lord heal me, I'll take it like that. But until such time as that, my age, I'm 61, we start to deal with degeneration. Stuff shrinks in these discs. It's hard to bend sometime. With referring to Israel as a stiff-necked people, in other words, come on, they don't want to bow. It says Moses bowed, but the people tend to be stiff-necked. But he says, Lord, even with that, please be gracious and go with these stiff-necked people. Let my Lord please go in our midst. Pardon our iniquity and our sin, and take us for your own inheritance. As I put a wrap on this, sometimes, I want you to hear me, if you're a parent, sometimes you can really be chagrined by your kiddos because we know them, and sometimes we can feel sinned against by them. There's something about maternal and paternal affections that keep us going and kindly disposed, despite the fact that our children can be wayward and despite the fact that they can, on occasion, not give us our just deserve. That's parenting. That just goes with the territory. Sometimes it just gets a little tough. And what's interesting here is even amidst the backdrop of all of this turmoil, Moses here is interceding. God, be gracious, be a dad. God reveals that he's predisposed to be that way. Isn't it great to know that we have a kindly disposed God who's merciful if we turn toward him? I don't know what your circumstances are right now, and I don't know what your relationship with God is right now. It's enough for me to keep my own self on track and manage my own circumstances. I'm a judge of nobody else. But if in your own estimation you think you're drawing a short straw on this, that is, you're coming up wanting, why not turn to God now? Why not remember what's revealed in the text, that you will, if you reach up to him and want to reach out to the future with him, be assured that you're going to be greeted by a God who's kindly disposed, who's game to welcome sinners home. Remember that. That's good news from ancient Jews. And until next week, Jeffrey Seif here, signing out. God bless.